Lily stood outside the glass tower, her reflection trembling in the cold wind. Her hair clung to her cheeks, rainwater dripping onto her torn satchel. People rushed by, men in suits, women clutching umbrellas, but no one saw her. To them, she was invisible. Just another poor girl trying to survive another storm. Inside, the air smelled of polished marble and money. A receptionist looked up from her desk, eyes narrowing. "Can I help you?" Lily swallowed hard. I need to speak to Mr. Grant. Please." The woman frowned. "Do you have an appointment?" Lily shook her head. "No, but it's really important. I just need to talk to him. For a minute." The receptionist sighed. "Sweetheart, he's a very busy man. You can't just walk in like that." Lily's voice cracked. "Please, it's for school. I just need shoes. I can't go back without them." Something in her tone, pure, desperate innocence, made the woman hesitate. Her hand hovered over the intercom, then lowered again. "Wait here," she murmured. Minutes later, a tall man appeared from the elevator. Ethan Grant, billionaire, investor, and the kind of person people feared to disappoint. His suit was perfect, his shoes spotless, his expression unreadable. When he saw the tiny figure by the desk, his brow furrowed. "What is this?" he asked. The receptionist stammered. "She said she needs to talk to you, sir, about shoes." Lily clutched her satchel tighter. "Please, sir," she whispered. "My school said I can't come back unless I have proper shoes. My father lost his job. My mother, she's sick. I just need one pair. I'll work, I promise." Ethan's jaw tightened. His voice came out sharp. "This isn't a charity. You can't just walk into my building and—" "So," the receptionist cut in softly, "she's just a child." He turned to her, eyes flashing. "And so are thousands of others. If I helped everyone who asked, I'd have a line out the door." Lily flinched, her shoulders curling inward. The rain outside beat harder against the glass, as if the sky itself protested. For a long second, no one spoke. Then Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Go home, kid. There are shelters for people like you." But Lily didn't move. She lifted her face, her eyes wide, shimmering with tears that hadn't yet fallen. "Please, sir, I don't need money. I just want to go to school." Something in that voice, that trembling mix of pride and pain, pierced the armor he wore every day. Ethan looked away. He hated that feeling. The reminder that once, long ago, he too had begged, not for shoes, but for a chance. "Where's your father?" he asked quietly. "At home," she said, "trying to fix old radios to earn something. But they don't sell much." He said maybe next month, but school said I can't wait. Ethan studied her face, the bruised hope in her words. Against his better judgment, he said, "Come with me." Lily blinked, confused. "So?" He gestured toward the elevator. "Let's get this over with." They rode up in silence, the city stretching beneath them through the glass. Lily clutched her satchel to her chest, eyes darting from the floor numbers to his reflection. Finally, the elevator chimed. The doors opened to a private office, vast, cold, overlooking the skyline. Ethan walked to his desk, grabbed his wallet, and took out a card. "Go to this store," he said, handing it to her. "Tell them I sent you. They'll get you shoes." Lily stared at the card, then at him. "You mean it?" He nodded, already turning away. "Now go before I change my mind." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Thank you, so." As she left, Ethan felt a strange heaviness settle in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. He told himself it was nothing, just another act of pity. But deep down, something had begun to stir, something he thought money had long buried. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the world still felt heavy. Lily held the silver card tight against her chest, her small fingers trembling as she read the embossed letters. Grant Industries. She had never touched something so valuable, and for a moment, she feared it might disappear if she blinked too long. The streets glistened with puddles reflecting the gray sky. She walked quickly, her shoes squeaking with each step, heart pounding with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. The store Ethan mentioned sat only a few blocks away, large glass windows filled with polished leather shoes she'd never dared to dream of owning. Inside, the air was warm, perfumed with new fabric and cedar polish. The clerk looked up, eyebrows raised at the sight of a drenched little girl clutching a business card. "Can I help you?" he asked, uncertain. Lily stepped forward, voice small but steady. "Mr. Grant sent me. He said you'd help me get shoes for school." The man's expression changed immediately. "Oh, Mr. Grant." He took the card, scanned it, and nodded. "Of course. Please, come in. Let's get you something that fits." He brought out several pairs, each one more beautiful than the last. Lily's eyes widened at the sight of real leather, clean soles, perfect stitching. She slipped one on and gasped softly. For the first time in months, her feet didn't ache. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the poor girl everyone ignored. She saw a student, someone who belonged. "Thank you," she whispered. The clerk smiled kindly. "You can thank Mr. Grant." In his office, Ethan sat by the window, the city lights flickering below like restless stars. His assistant, Grace, entered quietly. That girl from earlier, she just left the store. She couldn't stop smiling. He nodded without turning around. "Good. Make sure the payment goes through." Grace hesitated. "You know, sir, you didn't have to do that." "I know," he said flatly, "but it doesn't hurt to remind people I have a heart. Occasionally." Grace studied him for a moment. "Or maybe it's to remind yourself." He looked up, eyes narrowing slightly, but said nothing. When she left, he leaned back in his chair, letting the silence fill the room. His mind drifted to a memory he'd buried deep. A boy, barefoot, watching his father beg outside a construction site for work. That boy had promised himself he'd never need anyone's pity again. Now, decades later, a little girl's trembling voice had cracked that old promise like glass. He tried to shake it off, bury himself in emails and figures. But something strange happened that night. A video appeared on his social media feed, a blurry clip of a girl, soaked in rain, holding up a shiny pair of shoes with tears streaming down her face. The caption read, "When the world turns cold, one act of kindness can bring the sun back." It had thousands of shares. He froze. The comments flooded in, people writing about faith in humanity, kindness, and hope. He didn't know whether to feel proud or exposed. Then he saw it, a comment from a user named Lily S. "Thank you, Mr. Grant. I'll never forget what you did. I'll make you proud someday." For reasons he couldn't explain, his chest tightened. He minimized the screen, muttering, "This will blow over." But it didn't. The next morning, a reporter was outside his office, asking about the mysterious act of kindness. Employees whispered in the halls. Stockholders called him the billionaire with a heart. Ethan hated attention, but something in Lily's face, her gratitude, kept replaying in his mind. That night, he found himself parked across from her neighborhood, a row of old houses patched together with hope and rust. Through the window of one, he saw Lily helping her father fix a broken lamp, both of them laughing. He didn't know what he was looking for. Maybe proof that his gesture had meant something. Then he saw it, a small piece of cardboard taped to their wall. In shaky handwriting, it read, "Never forget, someone cared." He sat there for a long time, watching the light flicker through their window until it went out. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. Days turned into weeks, but the small act of kindness refused to fade. Lily wore her new shoes every morning with care, polishing them with an old cloth before stepping into school. For the first time, she wasn't sent home. She sat in class, raised her hand, answered questions, and smiled. It wasn't just about the shoes. It was about being seen. Her teachers noticed the change. Even her classmates, who once laughed at her torn soles, now whispered in admiration. "That's a girl the billionaire helped," they'd say. She blushed every time she heard it, torn between pride and disbelief. At home, her father's health had worsened. The coughs came deeper, longer, but he hid them behind a fading smile. "You look like a star in those shoes," he'd whisper, brushing her hair back. "Don't ever let anyone tell you you're less Lily." One evening, After homework, Lily found herself writing a letter. She didn't know why. Maybe to thank him properly. Maybe because her heart still felt too full. Dear Mr. Grant, thank you for giving me more than shoes. You gave me courage. I don't have much, but I promise to make something of myself one day. Maybe I'll even work for you. I just wanted you to know, you changed my life. Lily. She sealed it, unsure how to send it. She tucked it into her school bag, thinking maybe one day she'd find a way. Meanwhile, Ethan tried to move on. His schedule was busier than ever, meetings, contracts, events. Yet, every time he passed a shoe store, he caught himself slowing down. He told himself it was coincidence, that he wasn't thinking about her. But when his assistant, Grace, dropped a pile of charity proposals on his desk one afternoon, he paused at one labeled Future Steps, Education for Underprivileged Kids. The name made him chuckle. Steps, like shoes. He didn't even realize he'd signed the funding slip until Grace said, "You're getting soft, so." He scowled. "It's good PR." "Sure," she said with a smile that told him she didn't believe it. A few days later, Lily's teacher made an announcement. "Students, we have an essay competition this month, the kindest act I'd ever witnessed. The winner's story will be published in the local paper." Lily's heart skipped. She knew exactly what to write. That night, under the dim light of their kitchen bulb, she wrote until her hand cramped. She described the rain, the glass tower, the man who could have turned her away but didn't. She poured every ounce of gratitude into her words, ending it with, "Sometimes, the richest person isn't the one with the most money, but the one who decides to care." She never imagined her essay would win. But a week later, her teacher read her name aloud, tears in her eyes. Lily Hart, first place. The story spread like wildfire. It reached the same local journalist who'd covered the shoe video. Within days, it was online again, with Ethan's name right beside it. At his office, Ethan's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from strangers poured in, thanking him for restoring their faith in kindness. But one message stopped him cold, an email forwarded from his PR team. Subject, "You don't remember me, do you?" Body, "Mr. Grant, I read the article about the girl you helped. I knew you once, back when you had nothing. You were the one asking for shoes then. Funny how life turns, isn't it? M. Rivers." The name hit him like thunder. Marcus Rivers, the construction foreman who'd once bought him his first work boots when he was just 16 and penniless. Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, memories rushing back, the sting of cold floors, the hunger, the shame of begging. He closed the laptop, pressed his palms over his eyes, and whispered, Maybe I was just paying it forward." For the first time in years, he didn't feel powerful. He felt human. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. The next morning, Ethan couldn't concentrate. The name Marcus Rivers lingered in his thoughts like a song he couldn't silence. He hadn't thought of that man in over 20 years, the one who gave him boots, a job, and a second chance. Ethan had promised to repay him one day, but life moved fast, and success had made him forget. He opened his laptop again and typed Marcus Rivers Construction Company into the search bar. The result was disheartening. The company had closed years ago. But there was a small note under an obituary, survived by daughter, Grace Rivers. Ethan froze. Grace, his assistant. He leaned back, disbelief flickering in his eyes. Grace Rivers. The name he'd said 1,000 times suddenly carried a past he hadn't known. Moments later, he buzzed her in. Grace, can we talk? She entered, holding her usual notebook. Of course, sir. He gestured toward the chair, voice lower than usual. You never told me your father was Marcus Rivers. Grace blinked. You remember him? How could I forget? He murmured. He helped me when no one else would. He gave me my first pair of boots. Without him, I wouldn't be here. Her lips trembled slightly. He always talked about a young man who reminded him of himself. Said you'd go far one day. He passed away before he could see that he was right. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. Ethan swallowed the lump rising in his throat. Grace, I never thanked him properly. She smiled softly. Maybe you just did, by helping that girl. The words hit him like a quiet truth. The circle was complete, yet he felt unfinished, as though one final thread still needed tying. Meanwhile, Lily's story had caught the attention of a local charity group. They visited her school, promising scholarships to children in need. Lily's teacher called her name, beaming. You're one of the first we're nominating. Lily, you've inspired so many. Her classmates clapped. Lily smiled, clutching her essay close. That night, she ran home, bursting through the door to tell her father. Dad, they said I might get a scholarship. I could go to a better school, one with books and computers and... But the words stopped. Her father was sitting on the couch, coughing violently, his hand clutching his chest. Dad, she whispered, rushing to him. He waved her off weakly. I'm fine, sweetheart, just tired. But she saw the fear behind his smile. They went to the hospital that night. The sterile hallway smelled of bleach and sorrow. The doctor spoke gently, but the words burned into Lily's heart. Chronic heart failure. He needs medication and rest. She sat beside his bed, her small hands wrapped around his rough ones. You'll get better, Daddy. I promise. He smiled faintly. As long as you keep smiling, Lily, I already am. The next morning, she skipped school to find help. She remembered the tall building, the glass tower, the man who'd once listened. Maybe, just maybe, he could help again. She took the same route as before, shoes splashing through puddles. When she reached the lobby, the receptionist's eyes widened. You again? Lily nodded breathlessly. Please, I need to see Mr. Grant. It's about my father. He's really sick. The receptionist hesitated but picked up the phone. Moments later, Ethan appeared, confusion written on his face. Lily, what's wrong? She ran to him, tears welling. Please, sir, my dad's in the hospital. They said he needs medicine, but we can't afford it. I didn't know who else to ask. For a heartbeat, Ethan just stood there, guilt and empathy colliding in his chest. He knelt down, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. It's okay, Lily. I'll take care of it. He didn't wait for her to explain more. Within an hour, his driver had them at the hospital, bills covered, medicine delivered. The doctors promised to begin treatment immediately. Lily couldn't stop thanking him. Her tears soaked through the cuff of his sleeve. You saved him, she whispered. You really saved him. Ethan smiled faintly. No, Lily, you did. You never gave up. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. So, he looked back. Why did you help me again? He paused. Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. And I never forgot. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. Days passed, and Lily's father slowly began to recover. The medicine worked, and the color returned to his cheeks bit by bit. Every day after work, Ethan would check in, quietly, without fanfare, sometimes dropping off food, sometimes paying the hospital bills in advance. He told himself it was just responsibility, a follow-up to a promise. But deep down, it was more than that. 4 years, Ethan had walked through life untouched, cold meetings, lonely dinners, and applause that never reached his heart. Now, a little girl and her ailing father had managed to stir something he thought he'd buried forever. One evening, he arrived at the hospital to find Lily sitting by her father's bedside, humming softly as she fed him soup. She looked up, eyes lighting up when she saw him. Mr. Grant, you came again. He smiled faintly. I told you I'd check in, didn't I? Her father tried to sit up straighter. Sir, I don't know how to thank you. We're not used to anyone caring like this. Ethan waved him off. You don't owe me anything. Just get better. The man nodded slowly. You remind me of someone I once worked with, a boy who never gave up, no matter how hard life was. Said he'd build something big one day. What was his name? He squinted, searching his memory. Ethan Grant. Ethan froze. His pulse quickened, eyes flicking to Lily, then back to the man. You knew me. Her father chuckled weakly. Of course. You work with my brother, Marcus Rivers. He used to talk about you all the time. Said you had fire in your eyes. Said one day you'd make the world notice your name. Ethan's throat tightened. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Marcus was your brother. The man nodded. Yes, my name's Daniel. Marcus helped you, didn't he? He told me about a boy with holes in his shoes. Said helping him made him feel alive again. Ethan couldn't speak. The hospital room suddenly felt too small, the air too heavy. He turned away, struggling to steady his breath. Daniel continued softly. He always said kindness is a debt you pay forward. Looks like you did. Ethan's vision blurred for a moment, not from the light, but from a flood of memories. The sound of construction sites, Marcus's laugh, the way he'd handed over those boots with no judgment, only belief. He'd spent his whole life building empires, yet this fragile thread of human connection was worth more than all of it combined. Daniel, Ethan said quietly, turning back to him, I owe your brother everything. I wish I could have told him before he passed. Daniel smiled faintly. You just did. Son, he's somewhere proud of you, I'm sure. For the first time in years, Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. He nodded, unable to speak, then placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder before quietly stepping out. Outside the hospital, Lily ran after him. Mr. Grant, wait! He turned. She was holding something, a folded letter, edges worn, her handwriting uneven. This is for you, she said shyly. He took it gently, recognizing the same innocent sincerity that had once walked into his office, drenched and trembling. Can I open it now? He asked. She nodded. He unfolded the letter, eyes scanning the words. Thank you for giving me more than shoes. You gave me courage. I don't have much, but I promise to make something of myself one day. Maybe I'll even work for you. You changed my life. When he finished reading, his voice cracked slightly. You already work for me. Lily, you're teaching me how to be human again. Her eyes widened, and she smiled, that kind of smile that breaks through even the hardest hearts. Then I'll keep doing my best, she whispered. He smiled back. I know you will. As they stood there under the golden hospital lights, something unspoken passed between them, the meeting of two lives that were never supposed to cross, yet somehow needed to. Ethan looked up at the night sky, remembering Marcus, remembering every hand that had lifted him when he'd fallen. Maybe kindness wasn't just a moment. Maybe it was a circle that kept spinning until it found its way back home. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. The following week brought quiet change, the kind that creeps in unnoticed. Ethan began visiting the hospital less as a benefactor and more as something else. He'd sit with Lily while she read her school books aloud to her father, or help her with math problems when she stumbled. Grace noticed a difference. 2. You've been leaving the office early, she said one morning with a knowing smile. He didn't look up from his papers, just tying loose ends. Grace folded her arms. You mean healing old ones? Ethan sighed but didn't deny it. You ever think life gives us mirrors? People who show us the things we've forgotten. Grace nodded. Every day. That night, Ethan stopped by the hospital again, but Daniel's bed was empty. Panic jolted through him until a nurse gently guided him to another ward. Don't worry, sir. He's stable. Just move for observation. He exhaled deeply, then saw Lily sitting in the corner, sketchbook on her knees. Her face lit up when she saw him. Mr. Grant, look! She showed him her drawing, a tall glass building with a small figure standing in front, holding shoes. At the top, written in bold letters, was Hope Never Wears Out. Ethan smiled, taking a seat beside her. That's beautiful, Lily. She grinned proudly. I'm going to give it to you when I finish, so you never forget me. His chest tightened. I don't think I could, even if I tried. They both laughed softly. But before he could say more, a voice called from behind them. Mr. Grant. Ethan turned. A man in a dark suit approached. Oliver, one of his board members. His expression was sharp, impatient. I've been looking for you everywhere, Oliver said coldly. Reporters are asking about your charity work. The shareholders are nervous. They say you're losing focus. Ethan stood slowly. Losing focus. Oliver's tone hardened. You built an empire on discipline, not pity. People don't invest in sentiment. Ethan, you start handing out miracles, you'll end up with a line of beggars. Lily's eyes widened at the words. She gripped her sketchbook tighter. Ethan's voice dropped, calm but dangerous. You're right. People don't invest in sentiment. But maybe that's why this world's falling apart. Oliver frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'd rather be remembered for helping one child than for doubling anyone's profits. Oliver shook his head in disgust. You've changed. Ethan nodded. I hope so. When the man left, Ethan turned back to Lily, whose eyes shimmered with pride. You stood up for kindness, she said softly. He smiled faintly. Guess I learned from the best. Later that night, as Ethan drove home, his phone buzzed, a message from Grace. So, there's something you should see. It's about your past. And Marcus. He frowned, pulling over to read the attachment. It was a scanned letter found among old company archives. To Ethan Grant, if you ever make it, don't thank me with money. Find someone who needs what you once did, not just shoes, but a chance. That's how you'll know you've truly succeeded. Marcus Rivers. Ethan read the letter again and again until his eyes blurred. He didn't know Grace had kept it, that she'd been waiting for the right time to show him. He sat there for a long time, the hum of traffic fading behind his thoughts. Marcus had known him better than he knew himself. Every deal, every skyscraper, every award, none of it had brought peace. But one small act of kindness had rewritten everything. He opened his phone and typed a message to Grace. We're starting a foundation. In Marcus's name. For kids like Lily. Her reply came instantly. I'll handle the paperwork tomorrow. He'd be proud. A week later, Ethan stood beside Lily at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Marcus Foundation for Youth and Education. Reporters flashed cameras, asking questions, but Ethan didn't care for headlines. He cared for the small hand that slipped into his as the crowd applauded. You did it, Lily whispered. No, he said softly, squeezing her hand. We did. The applause faded slowly as the ceremony came to an end. Cameras were lowered, microphones packed away, and the echo of celebration softened into something gentler, a stillness filled with gratitude. Ethan stood on the small stage, watching Lily chase the last of the balloons that had escaped into the golden afternoon sky. Her laughter carried across the courtyard like sunlight. But beneath that warmth, a quiet ache pulsed in his chest, an unease he couldn't name. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was the weight of memories finally surfacing after years of silence. Grace approached him, holding a folder. You did good today, she said. He smiled faintly. It wasn't me. Yes, it was, she replied softly. For once, you let the world see who you really are. He looked at her, emotion flickering behind his calm exterior. Maybe that's what scares me the most. She closed the folder gently. Then you're finally human again. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed, a call from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something told him to answer. Mr. Grant, a trembling voice said. This is the hospital. It's about Daniel Hart. The ground seemed to tilt beneath him. What happened? There was a complication. You should come as soon as possible. Ethan didn't speak. He simply turned, his face pale. Grace read everything in his eyes and whispered, Go! The drive to the hospital blurred into streaks of city lights and red signals that meant nothing. When he arrived, Lily was already there, standing in the hallway, clutching her shoes, tears carving lines down her cheeks. Mr. Grant, she choked out. They said is gone. He froze. Her father's room was silent now, too still, too final. Daniel lay peacefully, as if sleeping, a faint smile still resting on his lips. Ethan stepped closer, the memories flashing like ghosts, Marcus's laughter, Daniel's voice, Lily's hope. He had saved fortunes but couldn't save this one man. Lily sank to her knees beside the bed, whispering, I told him you'd come. I told him you always keep your promises. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached for her shoulder. I'm so sorry, Lily. She looked up, eyes glossy and lost. He said not to cry. He said people who love each other never really go away. Do you think that's true? Ethan swallowed hard. I think it's the truest thing I've ever heard. She leaned into him, her small frame shaking. He held her, saying nothing, because sometimes silence was the only kindness left. Outside, rain began to fall again, soft, steady, like the first day they'd met. Days passed in a blur. The funeral was quiet, attended by few but felt by many. Ethan stood in the back, coat collar turned up against the wind, watching as Lily placed a small flower on her father's coffin. When she turned to him, he saw both her grief and her strength, fragile but shining. Afterward, as the sun dipped low, she approached him. He always said you were proof that good people still exist, she whispered. He knelt to meet her gaze, and he was proof that kindness never dies, even when people do. She hesitated, then pulled something from her satchel, a small drawing. It was the one she'd been working on at the hospital. This is for you, she said, so you never forget him either. He took it carefully. The sketch showed 3 figures standing beneath a tree, a tall man, a little girl, and another man between them, smiling. Above them were the words, "Where kindness lives, no one's alone." Ethan couldn't speak. He simply pulled her into a quiet embrace, the kind that said more than words ever could. That night, he returned to his penthouse. The city glittered below, but it felt empty. He placed Lily's drawing on his desk, right beside Marcus's old letter. 2 pieces of paper, one from his past, one from his present, now bound together by the same truth. He whispered into the silence, "You were both right. Success isn't what I built. It's who I became." Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon, heavy, distant, like a curtain call on a long-forgotten play. Ethan leaned back, eyes closed, and for the first time in decades, let himself grieve, not just for what he'd lost, but for everything he'd finally found. If you believe love still wins, comment Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Months passed, and the world moved on, but for Ethan and Lily, life had become a different kind of quiet. Grief had softened into something gentler, a memory that lingered like a bruise you didn't want to heal because it reminded you of love. Every morning, Lily would walk to school wearing the same shoes Ethan had bought her, still polished, still shining, though they'd grown a little tight now. And every afternoon, she'd stop by the Marcus Foundation, where she spent hours drawing posters and helping other children. She loved hearing their laughter fill the halls. It made her feel like her father was still there, watching. Ethan watched too, from his office above the foundation. He no longer wore the perfect, closed-off look of a billionaire. His suits were simpler, his schedule lighter, his heart freer. Grace would often find him by the window, lost in thought. "You've changed everything, you know," she'd tell him. He'd smile faintly. Not everything, just what mattered. One afternoon, a soft knock broke his focus. Lily peeked in, holding a folder against her chest. "Hi, Mr. Grant. I came to show you something." He gestured her in. "What is it?" "It's for the scholarship program," she said, placing the folder on his desk. "You said we should name it something meaningful, so I thought—" He opened it and froze. The title on the front page read, "The Daniel Hart Scholarship for Kids Who Never Stop Trying." Beneath it was a handwriting, uneven but brave, dedicated to my dad, who believed in kindness, and to the man who proved it still exists. Ethan didn't speak for a long time. When he finally looked up, his eyes glistened. "Lily, this is perfect." She smiled shyly. "Do you think he'd like it?" He nodded slowly. "He'd be proud of you. More than proud." She tilted her head. "And Marcus, do you think he'd be proud of you?" The question caught him off guard, so innocent, yet so piercing. He looked out the window, where sunlight broke through the clouds and spilled across the city like forgiveness itself. "I think maybe he already is." That weekend, they held the first ceremony for the scholarship. Children from every corner of the city came, some barefoot, some shy, all hopeful. Lily stood on stage, holding a small note card but speaking straight from her heart. "When I was little, I thought people like Mr. Grant lived in another world, one made of glass and gold. she said, her voice trembling but strong. But I learned that kindness doesn't live in tall buildings or big wallets. It lives in hearts, even the ones that forget how to feel. My dad used to say that good people don't shine because of money, but because of mercy, and now I know he was right. The crowd fell silent, many wiping tears. Ethan stood near the back, his heart full. When she finished, she looked right at him and smiled, not as a girl he'd helped, but as someone who'd become his equal in spirit. After the event, they walked together down the steps of the hall. The sky was painted in soft gold, the kind that makes you believe in second chances. Mr. Grant, Lily said softly, I've been thinking. When I grow up, I want to run this foundation. For kids like me. He chuckled quietly. You will, and you'll do it better than I ever could. She grinned. Promise. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not the girl in the rain anymore, but the woman she'd one day become. Promise. They walked in silence for a while until she suddenly said, You know, you never told me what made you help me that first day. Ethan smiled faintly. Because once upon a time, someone gave me a pair of shoes too. Her eyes widened. Really? He nodded. And he told me, when you have more, give back. Not because you owe, but because you remember. I guess I finally understood what he meant. They reached the street corner, the same one where it had all begun. The rain started again, light and familiar. Lily looked up at the sky, laughing. Full circle, she whispered. Ethan smiled, a warmth blooming in his chest. Yeah, he said softly. Full circle. He watched her skip ahead, her shoes splashing in the puddles, the same shoes that had once been a symbol of her struggle, now shining like a badge of hope. And for the first time, Ethan realized that maybe stories like this never really end. They just keep walking, from one heart to another. If the story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, I felt you,